Tonight, the checks are in the mail, but will the soaring cost of gas and food siphon all the economic stimulus right out of them? I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, Barack Obama's pastor answers his critics.
It is not an attack on Jeremiah Wright. It is an attack on the black church.
Rescued CBS journalist Richard Butler talks for the first time about his 2 terrifying months as a captive in Iraq.
I thought we were being taken out into the desert and, we would just be shot in the desert.
And a makeover for the squeaky clean image of 15-year-old Miley Cyrus. Will her fans still be cheering?
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. The government started sending out those tax rebate checks today, but they may not do all that much to stimulate the economy because a lot of the money will be used to pay for basic necessities like energy. The price of oil approached $120 a barrel today before closing at a record $118.75. Another all-time high for gasoline as well, a nationwide average of $3.60 a gallon. Anthony Mason now on the incredible shrinking rebate.
As those tax rebates begin rolling out by electronic deposit this week, by mail starting next, taxpayers are ready and waiting.
I can't believe it's happening. I'm excited.
Why would I be against receiving $600?
130 million households will receive rebates, with individuals getting up to $600, couples up to $1,200, plus $300 for each eligible child.
So yes, it'll make a big difference for me. Definitely.
The government is hoping we all go out and spend that money. Not Jennifer Gibby.
It's all going to credit cards.
In fact, more than half of those expecting a check, according to a new CBS News survey, intend to pay down their bills. More than a quarter say they'll save the money. Only 18% plan to spend it.
Well, we all say that, but also, if people have a credit card balance and they pay it down this month with the check, then they'll be ready to spend even more next month.
So economists figure it will give a $168 billion kick to the economy.
It's not going to be a permanent kick. It's really just sort of a one-quarter sugar rush, if you will.
Even President Bush admitted last week inflation has already eaten away much of the check's buying power.
This money's going to help Americans offset the high prices we're seeing at the gas pump and the grocery store.
Just since the president signed the stimulus package back in February, gas prices alone have surged more than 20%, adding more than $700 to the average household's annual fuel bill. In Washington today, truckers clogged the road to the Capitol in protest. But for many taxpayers, much of that rebate check will go right into the gas pump. The checks will arrive 6 months too late to prevent an economic slowdown. That started back in December, but they could help keep what many economists now say is a recession from getting even worse. Katie?
Meanwhile, Anthony, someone's doing well during these tough economic times, right?
Yeah, actually, the credit card companies are doing extraordinarily well because finances are getting tighter, people are charging more. Visa just announced a 28% profit increase for the past 3 months. Katie, they made more than $300 million.
Wow. Anthony Mason. Anthony, as always, thanks. Turning to the presidential campaign now and more talk about race and politics. Barack Obama's longtime pastor again defended his views and controversial sermons in a speech today to the National Press Club in Washington. Obama has been trying to distance himself from the Reverend Jeremiah Wright, but as Dean Reynolds reports, given what Wright said today, that might not be so easy.
Using the podium as his pulpit,
11 o'clock on Sunday morning has been called the most segregated hour in America.
Reverend Wright said today the firestorm over his sermons was an assault on the African-American church.
This is not an attack on Jeremiah Wright. It has nothing to do with Senator Obama. It is an attack on the black church launched by people who know nothing about the African-American religious tradition.
But it sure does have something to do with Senator Obama, the most celebrated member of Wright's church. The pastor's reemergence now, just as the Illinois senator seeks to regain some momentum, is a gift to the political opposition, which has stressed Obama's difference from the mainstream.
Being different does not mean one is deficient.
The National Press Club appearance was Wright's chance to explain himself and his methods.
Black preaching is different from European and European American preaching. It is not bombastic. It is not controversial. It's different.
But Wright's inflammatory rhetoric and the endless recycling of his statements on the internet and television had already knocked Obama's presidential campaign off stride.
He's just too extreme for North Carolina.
Today, Wright took written questions from members of the National Press Club.
In light of your widely quoted comments damning America, do you think you owe the American people an apology?
God damns some practices, and there is no excuse for the things that the government, not the American people, have done. That doesn't make me not like America or unpatriotic.
As for questions about his patriotism, Wright pointed to his Marine service compared to Vice President Cheney's 5 deferments from duty.
I served 6 years in the military. Does that make me patriotic? How many years did Cheney serve?
Obama felt compelled to give a major speech on race last month after the whole issue erupted. Today, Wright implied the speech was politically motivated.
We both know that if Senator Obama did not say what he said, he would never get elected.
Of course, getting elected is the whole point. Senator Obama said today that Reverend Wright is free to speak his mind, but it doesn't represent Obama's views, nor is it what his campaign is all about. Katie?
And Dean, all of this seems to be having some impact, at least according to a recent poll.
That's right. The new poll shows Hillary Clinton is making some progress in a head-to-head matchup now against John McCain. She beats McCain by 9 points. Obama beats McCain too, but by only 2 points, raising more questions about his electability. Katie?
All right, Dean Reynolds in Chicago tonight. Thank you, Dean. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton picked up an important endorsement today. 1 week before the primary in North Carolina, she got the backing of the governor there, Mike Easley. Indiana's primary is also next week, and today the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a state law there that requires voters to present a photo ID. Writing for the majority in a 6-3 decision, Justice Stevens said the law protects the integrity of the electoral process. Republican backers of the law say it's aimed at preventing voter fraud, but civil rights groups say it's really aimed at discouraging poor, elderly, and minority voters who tend to vote for Democrats. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, a report due out tomorrow raises some serious questions about one of the most influential government agencies, the Environmental Protection Agency. The report says non-scientists are playing a bigger and bigger role in EPA decisions. It even suggests political pressure may be putting the health of Americans at risk. Chip Reed got an advanced look at the report. And Chip, this is really damaging to the EPA's reputation.
Well, it certainly could be, Katie, but it also points a big finger of blame at the White House, and in particular the budget office at the White House, saying that they're interfering in this process. The bottom line, they say, is that the administration is dragging its feet on review of toxic chemicals to the point that the health of millions of Americans could be endangered. Formaldehyde is found in everything from home building materials to furniture to those infamous trailers that made thousands of Katrina victims ill. For more than a decade, the EPA has tried and failed to regulate formaldehyde. The same is true for hundreds of other toxic chemicals, including some that have contaminated drinking water supplies across the nation. A new government report by the investigative arm of Congress concludes that the process for analyzing health effects of toxic chemicals is at serious risk of becoming obsolete because of endless delays and secrecy. Behind it all, critics say, is the White House.
Well, we're witnessing a scandal of major proportions, in my opinion. And yes, politics has taken over the whole thing. And the scientists are being thrown, to the rear.
An EPA scientist with extensive experience in this area who refused to go on camera due to fear of retribution told CBS News these chemicals have effects ranging from learning disabilities to cancer, and EPA scientists can't protect the public because of White House interference. This is what the process for assessing toxic chemicals looked like 5 years ago, and this is what it looks like today after the White House added layer after layer of review. 5 years ago, EPA set a goal of assessing 50 toxic chemicals a year. In the past 2 years, they completed a total of 4. Now, in a letter, the White House Budget Office says this report is seriously flawed because it focuses on timeliness and not the quality of the end product, which they say is improving. Katie?
Chip Reed. Chip, thank you very much. There is much more CBS News ahead. Overseas, authorities have discovered what they call a house of horrors. Police in Austria said today a man confessed to keeping his daughter locked in a basement for 24 years and fathering 7 children with her. 3 of those children never saw the light of day. Another died as an infant, while 3 others lived normal lives with the father's family. Authorities claim the man's wife had no idea what was going on. Meanwhile, a CBS journalist is speaking for the first time about his ordeal as a hostage in Iraq. Richard Butler was kidnapped from a hotel in Basra in February. He was held by Shiite militants for 2 months, the entire time fearing, even expecting to be murdered. Now safely out of Iraq, he told his story to Alan Pizzi in London.
I'm standing there in front of these 8 guys with AK-47s, and I'm in a pair of underpants and a T-shirt. The odds are not in my favour.
In an instant, Richard Butler's life was reduced to survival level.
You're looking to buy extensions to your life in very small increments at the beginning. You know, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 2 minutes.
A hood was pulled over his head as he began a terrifying 2-month journey through Basra's netherworld.
Did you at any point think you were going to die?
Yes. I thought we were being taken out into the desert, and, you know, we would just be shot in the desert.
But captivity was a kind of living death.
One day they decided to move me from my room at night to this hidden room in a wall, and they actually plastered the door up once I was inside, and I didn't like that at all, and they did that 3 nights running.
The space was 3 feet wide and just long enough for Richard to stretch out or stand up in. He kept sane by trying to figure out ways to escape and by not thinking about his family.
You know, you want to not be doing this to your family, but you can't change it there and then. For my own protection, I had to shut them out completely.
But by talking about children with his captors, Richard managed to build the relationship so crucial to survival.
You know, you're no longer just a piece of meat with a hood on your head. You know, you're a father with children, and that's what they are, so it gives them something to relate to.
That kind of knowledge of Middle East culture helped Richard survive, but he was still caught in the crossfire. Iraqi security forces were battling Shiite militias all around his prison. And then...
all of a sudden my door burst open, so I tried to say I'm hostage, British, and to my right there was a taller Iraqi soldier, and he put his body around me to shield me as we ran out of the house. The bullets were ricocheting off the walls, and then there were other Iraqi soldiers trying to grab me, and this one soldier wouldn't let them take me until he got me to his general.
Richard Butler will keep covering trouble spots, but not right away.
I think I probably used up my share of luck for the coming few months.
A series of violent storms, including a possible tornado, swept through southern Virginia today. At least 1 person was killed and 200 others were injured. Witnesses say a twister touched down in Suffolk, Virginia, damaging a hospital and several homes there. And there's a new measure tonight of the housing slump. The government says nearly 3% of American homes were vacated and up for sale in the first quarter of this year. That's more than 2.25 million homes, an all-time high. A lot of people in this country are living on the edge financially and are in danger of becoming part of the other America, the one you don't always hear about. It happened to the family you're about to meet as Seth Doan begins a special series, Hitting Home.
That anyone would be struggling in this picture-perfect New England town seems difficult to imagine, but looks can be deceiving.
Well, what I've learned is not everybody looks needy either. That's right. You don't know.
Lisa Castellucci should know. She might not look needy, but she is.
How much are you allowed?
Okay, I'm allowed to come every 14 days.
Allowed to come to the Cape Ann food pantry where she gets donated food, a far cry from the days when she used to give.
When you donated before, did you ever have a appreciation for what it was like?
No. You know what? To be honest, I think I gave my leftovers, pretty much.
God is great, God is good.
Not so long ago, Lisa and her husband David were living the American dream. Their own home, their own business, 3 kids, and another on the way.
our fourth child, we named Hope, because our only hope that we have left is from God. And if we lose that, we're done, because that's all we have for real.
Poverty was not part of their plan.
So this building here was the family business.
Yeah, this was the family business.
David Castellucci inherited a successful auto body shop, but as the local economy suffered, his costs went up and business dropped.
It wasn't real. It wasn't real that I was losing everything that I had invested.
Where's Josiah?
He fell tens of thousands of dollars into debt and was forced to shut down. With no money coming in, the Castelluccis drained all their savings and went looking for help.
I mean, it was humbling for me to get food stamps. Humbling. I thought only really poor people need food stamps, and then I started realizing, well, I'm a really poor person.
And David went looking for a job, but it took 5 months to get one.
As a father, as a provider, do you feel like...
Inadequate.
Do you?
Absolutely.
Yes, this crisis that we are going through has affected each and every aspect of our lives.
Sometimes embarrassed, certainly humbled, Lisa started keeping a journal.
Not only did I sell every piece of clothing that I could sell of my own, but also every piece of clothing I could sell of my children's clothes.
It happened so fast that home improvements were halted right in the middle of the job. A blanket hanging on the stairwell is their attempt to keep in the heat. And when she's out with her kids, Lisa will even pick up cans off the street for the deposit money.
It's not like they're dirty. The cans are right there, so I just throw them in my bag, and that was another $3. When I make our deposits, I just gather up whatever pennies and everything else I can find, and I deposit it, and then I pay the bills little by little, and it's tough and it's humbling.
David got a new job. Working as a service technician for a copier company, he makes $40,000 a year, which might sound like a lot, but with a family of 6 and plenty of leftover debt, they're nowhere near out of the woods.
In a lot of ways, I think that we've grown closer as a family because of this situation. Not that I've enjoyed it. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody.
Wouldn't recommend it, and prays for a future when poverty is just part of his past. Seth Doan, CBS News, Gloucester, Massachusetts.
And now to some dramatic and exciting medical news. Researchers say gene therapy has given back some sight to a man who was almost completely blind. 6 months ago, 18-year-old Stephen Howarth could barely walk through a maze without bumping into walls. But after treatment, he walked through easily. Doctors injected a healthy gene into his retina, restoring some of his sight. And they hope that his treatment will eventually help millions of others with genetic eye disease, and that it can one day be applied to other conditions as well.